Well, the Infinity Train has reached its last stop. For the time being anyways. Infinity Train Book 4 is the unintentional final season. Apparently there were plans for up to 8 seasons of the series, and a script for a 5th season that would have paralleled the events of Book 4 is totally complete, but the show was cancelled before that could start production. In fact, that was supposed to be a movie, not just an episodic season. How cool would that have been? Come on, Warner Brothers. While we're all grinding our teeth and clenching our fists, let's just appreciate what we've got. Continue to support the show by legally streaming it on hbomax, and making tweets and fan art and all that stuff. That support is what made this show go into production in the first place, I think. Even though this wasn't meant to be the end, let's talk about Infinity Train Book 4. This season once again focuses on 2 passengers going through the train together. Mingi and Ryan, 2 old friends who grew up wanting to be musicians, but eventually split up later in life. The 2 end up going on the Infinity Train at the same time, and even their numbers seem to be exactly the same. Book 4 starts similarly to Book 1, where we see an entire explanation of how the 2 ended up on the train. Dare I say that first episode is even my favorite episode of this whole season. It's really cute how they so quickly put their story together, and they do this really creative split screen effect to show off the characters' lives simultaneously. The struggles they face and the way they're portrayed here are really grounded, and I love that about it. Episode 1 is almost like the Tale of Two Stands episode of Gravity Falls, if it was condensed into 11 minutes. It's a really great setup. Of course, eventually, Min and Ryan end up on the train, and they need to get themselves off of it. They meet a talking bell named Kez, who actually explains the whole situation to them. So, unlike other past seasons, right off the bat, our protagonists here know that they need to work to develop themselves and lower their numbers. This creates an interesting dynamic where they don't know what their problem really is. Their numbers barely budge and they fluctuate a ton because the 2 just can't work together properly, or be truthful to each other. There's one climactic moment towards the middle of the series that really surprised me. A character makes a pretty dark and selfish decision, and it's conveyed just using visuals, no dialogue. It was really cool. I think Book 4 has some really great train carts for the characters to navigate. Not only are they just creative and like super weird, but each cart they visit ends up having an impact on the plot progression, which feels new. I feel like in the past seasons, the carts just served as set pieces for emotion. They focus too much on aesthetics, like this cart is lonely feeling because this character needs to have a lonely moment here. Book 4 has really bizarre, almost like regular show style carts. You can't predict what character development they'll lead to. The weirdness on display here is definitely really appealing to me. I feel before this season, Infinity Train has always had like a consistent aesthetic between all its carts, which I can understand. Usually all the carts just have like a retro vibe and some sort of really simple gimmick. But it's always kind of bothered me because the show's called Infinity Train. The possibilities are infinite, and I feel like they never go weird enough. There's a lot more that can be done with this concept of a train with bajillions of totally different worlds. And Book 4 totally has the most fun display of this idea, but I still don't think it's the best it could be. The show could go further with this scenario. I almost feel like almost all the worlds shown off in Adventure Time are more interesting than what we see in Infinity Train. Also, this season overall is just not really as dark as past ones, which is actually a bit of a nice change of pace. After Book 1, I went into each season thinking, haha, okay, what jarring violence and depressing themes are we gonna see this time? But we don't really get that here. It's a bit more cartoony and realistic. The story's definitely emotional, but it's kind of a more traditional story that you could compare to other things you may have seen. I feel like past books had really specifically interesting stories that were emotional in ways that a lot of other Western cartoons didn't really cover. Book 4 is kind of just a traditional, like, broken friendship drama story. There is a sad story with a dark element towards the end of the season, but it's just mentioned in passing and not really visualized at all. I don't really know why they didn't just show that story in Infinity Train Book 4, they just mention it really quickly. I would say the primary thing I enjoyed from Book 4 was the fact that, for basically its entire duration, we're just watching 2 characters go through the train the way it was meant to be used. That's something I've wanted from this show for a long time. No big focus on lore, just seeing the characters develop while going through cool carts. And like I said before, this season definitely has the most fun and weird carts. I feel like I'm probably alone on this opinion, but the past seasons of Infinity Train were just very self-absorbed with discussing the lore and moral ambiguity of the train. I think those mysteries or those questions would have had a much greater impact if the show started out with something like Book 4, where there's not an inherently obvious mystery to what's going on. Book 1 was a pretty good start, though maybe Book 4 should have been made before Book 2? Book 1 sits weird with me because its big mystery is, what does Tulip's number mean? I was able to figure out the answer to that myself after episode 2 of book 1. But then suddenly within the final 2 episodes, it shifts focus and it's like, no, the mystery of the train was that the conductor wasn't the real conductor. And then you get Amelia's whole backstory thrown into a whole episode, which is, a good story, but it feels really out of place for an introductory season. Like, how are we supposed to be able to predict that the conductor was fake if we had literally zero context as to how the train was supposed to function? There could have been a greater air of mystery if this was all paced out differently. The story progression the way it is now is just kind of too direct for my tastes. You aren't really left wondering about anything, you're always quickly given answers, even to questions that you didn't have. Like again, the sudden answer that like, oh, the conductor wasn't the real one. I didn't even think for a second that that was a thing that would be important. Like supposedly one of the future books that isn't in production was going to be about Amelia. And if that was just going to be the story of like Amelia taking over the train, why would we care to watch that? Like it would be cool as heck, yeah, but it wouldn't be anything new unless they threw in a bunch of new train mechanics that we don't know about, like the actual inner workings. But still overall, it would kind of just show us events that we already know about through book 1's backstory and little pieces from book 3 as well. So what would we really gain from seeing Amelia's story covered again? I would almost rather just see another story like book 4 where it's just a new dynamic of characters solving their problem. I don't know why the world of the train just doesn't interest me that much. I don't really want the train to be explained, I just want to see it working out. But it seems like the writers only want to explain the train. I feel like leave that kind of stuff up to the fans and just make the show an interesting show about unique worlds and character dynamics. But anyways, what I was getting at before is that Book 4 lacks context in a good way. It doesn't focus on the greater lore of the train, which, in turn, would have made it a very mysterious season if it came out before we knew how the train fully functions. It could have created so much more fun theorizing and questions and tense, mysterious moments. But the way it is now, like, we watch Book 4 and we're just kind of like, hey, I know what's going on there because I watched the 3 other seasons before this one, because of course I did. I wouldn't watch book 4 first. All this too just makes me feel like the story's paced weird, and now it makes book 4 really seem very obvious that it was not an intentional ending. There's nothing really grand, exciting, or surprising about it. Book 4 has a great story with great characters, and it concludes in a heartfelt way, but this is absolutely not the ending of this show. And it sucks that we may never see that real conclusion ever. This isn't even a criticism because like it's not the show's fault that it had to end this way. But a lot of viewers, even the ones who are unaware that this is the final season, like ones that aren't engaged in fanbase or anything, are probably really going to notice that this is a weird place to end things. Anyways, just a few other thoughts about this season. The music is great as always, though I do wish there was more vocal music here. It's kind of just a personal preference thing, but I love when vocal songs are used to push stories forward. And this season is literally about 2 musicians, and there's only like 1 or 2 big musical moments. Really only 1 towards the end. Sure, the 2 characters don't really like each other much anymore, so why would they sing together throughout the season? That makes sense, but it just could have been cool. And maybe they could have sold another soundtrack to promote the show and get some sales. Apparently the first soundtrack sold really poorly, but they did release this season's big song moment as a single. So, as weird as it sounds, if you want to support the show, you should go check that out. There's not really much Infinity Train stuff to purchase. I guess this ties into singing too. The voice acting in this season is also great. Mingi and Ryan's actors work really well together. I really like Ryan's voice specifically. He had some fun delivery and, I don't know, he just has like a cool sounding voice. The talking bell Kez is voiced by Minty Lewis, who also voices Eileen in regular show, so that was immediately recognizable to me. She does great, but admittedly I found her character kind of annoying. She has some funny one-liners, like everyone's talking about this one scene where she says something about someone being hot. Like yeah, that's a great line, that gets a great laugh. Kez is a character who's constantly messing things up and being weirdly vague, so she's kind of like intentionally annoying, I guess. She has a sweet story by the end, but the first few moments with her, I was just kind of annoyed by her. I think it's probably because, I feel like almost specifically even just for her first appearance, she talks really slowly and she says like between every word. I mean, I literally do that same thing all the time myself, but it's annoying to listen to. You guys don't know how many likes I need to remove from all my audio recordings. Book 4 is not the ending this show deserves, but it's still a heartfelt and worthwhile journey. It's unique compared to the past seasons. I appreciate that it's not as dark as previous stories, and also that it doesn't put the train's lore before the character development. Here we just see two interesting and fun characters working together to solve their personal troubles, while also going through some bizarre and entertaining carts. This season is worth a watch for sure. If you want my thoughts on the previous seasons of Infinity Train, you could check out my previous reviews. I'll also be posting a compilation video soon with all of my Infinity Train reviews put together into one video. That will be a pretty long video since I reviewed Book 2 episodically, but I hope you enjoy it. To summarize my thoughts, I rated Book 1 with a B+. It covers an important topic, but the way the mystery progressed was a bit odd to me. I wasn't totally hooked on it. I rated Book 2 an A-, a big step up from Book 1. I love the new focus on 2 passenger characters, and it had some very cool sci-fi elements and a very fantastic thematic message that was done really well. I rated Book 3 with an A. Once again, I love the focus on 2 characters, and the drama and darkness present throughout this season was really different from what we usually get with Western animation. It might even be like too much of a weirdo, uncomfortable downer sometimes though, honestly. The season does have a happy, hopeful ending, but the ending definitely ended up feeling really rushed. And lastly, Book 4 is a B+. It's a unique and pure character story. There's no grand mystery. It's just 2 fun characters going on a quirky, emotional journey. It's a very pleasant watch through, but honestly, aside from the fun characters, cool carts we see, and some elements of the theme that goes on here, it doesn't feel all that special when compared to past seasons. But now, what do you guys all think about Infinity Train? I'd love to see more of the show someday, of course, so hopefully that can actually end up happening someday. Just keep supporting the show in any sort of way you can. Make fan art, comment on HBO Max's posts, watch it on HBO Max, all that stuff. Let me know in the comments how you would rank each season of the series. What's your favorite and what's your least favorite? Let's start some discussion. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to know when I post new videos. Thanks for watching, and super special thanks to my Patreon supporters. Support me on Patreon and you'll be able to submit video topics, see exclusive behind the scenes content, and help me keep this channel going. Also follow me on Twitter and TikTok for special updates.